In a lot of ways, Kosovo is the ultimate startup, right? I love the three word you said.
I like it.
Emerging, underestimated, and what was the third?
Promising.
And promising, right? And that's what every startup is.
So we had a clean slate to start over again, but we had a country that could work within Europe with no difficulty. And from the start, all of the new laws were written to conform with EU laws.
We were fortunate to have good experts who basically, yes, showed us what are the good practices in their own respective countries, but also pushed us to think what our needs were as Kosovars.
If you come here, you see what the ingredients are, you're finding a way to cooperate.
Yep.
And I think there is a way to do that in an international scale.
You have a winning situation here. You have a country which has all the laws in place.
From an entrepreneur's point of view, it's as stable as you need it to be.
Okay. We've got, somebody who was here at the birth of the country and played such a large role in it. We've got the current form of, we've got the current government and entrepreneur in the country and the sort of the future of the country and what can be built here as well with Blendrit today. So, we wanted to do this roundtable. Dale, when you were here late, 1990s or early 2000s, so much trust had to be built between, between Kosovo and the U.S. How did you go about starting to build that kind of trust that laid the foundation for?
I said let there be trust, and there was.
Then you said that's it. That's all you said. Just okay. Everybody trust each other, and that's it.
No. It was quite easy. And the U.S. was a leader in fighting against the Serbs during the period when they were trying to take all the people out of the country and driving them away. And when that was over, we moved in with troops. We moved in with assistance. And I think people had, even before that, a very favorable view of the U.S. as a country that they would consider a friend. Mm-hmm. And the Serbs did us a favor. They stole everything, papers, money, equipment, whatever they could take with them, they left. So we had a clean slate to start over again, which actually helped because the U.S. and the EU and UNMIC, which I have to give credit to, but reluctantly, but we then began putting all the pieces in place that it was going to be needed by a modern democracy. Mm-hmm. And we built one day after another. And from the start, all of the new laws were written to conform with EU laws. I mean, we had Americans writing them, we had to turn them over to EU lawyers who would then correct them so that they read as EU laws. So Kosovo was moving all along towards being an EU country eventually. Mm-hmm. Which didn't matter if we ever got there, but we had a country that could work within Europe with no difficulty.
Yep.
And it was very easy working with the Kosovars. I mean, it was people who had worked in the government before went back into it and took their old positions. New people went in who were enthusiastic to work with them. And before long, we had a functioning government. Mm-hmm. And first, the Provisional Institutions of Self-Government, is what it was nicely called. Mm-hmm. We all went by the PISG.
Could be worse. Yeah.
It was like a trainer government.
Yeah.
I don't know whether would you call it that? And we had officials who were sitting positions, like a prime minister who was head of the PISG.
Yeah.
A minister of this and minister of that for the PISG. And they were learning their positions, and the donors were still working besides them with all these advisors down below, working with their staffs. And it was just a building process. I mean, we went so far, the Americans, in creating a bank because there were no banks. Mm-hmm. But very quickly, Europeans came in and set up some banks. So I would say within the first 2.5 years, we had a working banking system here.
Yep.
But it was really learning from scratch, which was nice because we didn't have any of the old problems.
Right.
We had new problems.
Well, right. You get to create your own problems, right? I mean, that's so much, that's exactly what you were just talking about, right? With, painting on you got that canvas handed to you. Literally everything was gone, and, the country could start to build from there. What is that sort of trust, meant today as you continue to, you've been involved in the government here for 4 years. You're, with your previous mandate, you're still moving forward. What's that trust between the nations really meant to what Kosovo is today?
I think for us, it was the make it or break it in a way. It made us.
Right.
We were lucky to have some of the best expertise from developed nations, developed countries, such as our friend Dale, who basically he also, as a person, is very loving and puts his heart in whatever he does, and I think that has to do with the fact that these people are themselves accomplished. They came, they saw the destruction, they saw the people. As he said, it was a clean slate, but even in a clean slate, you can make mistakes. You can have people who may come in and just try to tick a box, right?
Right.
We were fortunate to have good experts who basically, yes, showed us what are the good practices in their own respective countries, but also pushed us to think what our needs were as Kosovars. And with that, they built up the capacities, the local capacities of people who today run institutions. And those people were the ones who were trained, coached, held by the hand initially after the war by internationals, people like Dale. And then also went beyond their duties and responsibilities and with great ideas, such as what Dale did with creation of the Kosovo American Education Fund. From the proceeds of the bank that they created, the American Bank in Kosovo, which was sold to Raiffeisen Bank, and then the proceeds of that money were put in a scholarship fund.
And you went through that program, and so did you, Blendrit, right?
Yes, and so did about 100 very good professionals, aspiring professionals who are well integrated, whether in institutions or even in our cabinet. We have also another one, which is the equivalent of CTO, Luxon. But in many places in the government, either previously or even now, KAF alum, not just KAF, to be respectful to also other programs which USAID put forward. But I mentioned KAF because we got scholarships for our graduate studies. I consider Dale, we all consider Dale as the creator. We refer to him as the father of KAF.
Let there be Kosovo.
So, Blendrit, what's that? You guys, both of you, obviously, you went through that program, and it's meant so much to the country, and that's that sort of. It's a great example of that kind of cooperation. That foundation that got laid that was really able to be built on. What does that mean to you today as a founder? I mean, what are the examples that you would sort of give today? You're building multiple companies here. How does all that kind of manifest itself today in terms of your ability to build a business here?
So I would say from both an educational point of view, we have benefited a lot from this partnership. From an economic point of view, a lot of the startup scene comes from the US, whether it's clients, investments, or ex-diaspora moving back here.
Right.
So I would say it's very multidimensional. It's quite complex, this connection.
Yep. Luan, what are if you kind of think about the government today and whatever that looks like over the next, 4 years or so, what are the couple actions that you think would be really, critical to take to continue to build that foundation between the U.S. and Kosovo, or just build the foundation for a really robust entrepreneurial environment here?
Well, several fronts. I believe investment in public infrastructure, such as environment, transport, and energy, is a necessity. And we have earmarked over 50 large projects for that. If we talk about sort of some pressing needs that any country should have in light of what's happening globally, food security, energy security, but also the most promising up-and-coming a group of sectors which are IT-enabled services
Right.
for Kosovo's context, having largest youth and tech-savvy and multilingual. When it comes to food security, you need water dams to build water irrigation systems, to then build greenhouses. So energy security, obviously, it's a necessity, and we have a very aggressive strategy to build 1,200 megawatts by 2031 of renewables, mostly solar and wind. But in terms of IT-enabled services, and as well as, let's say, BPO in light manufacturing, from high-value electronics down to furniture, for which we have an 80-year tradition in Kosovo. We are also very eager to create all the conditions that would construe a very positive business enabling environment.
Yep.
By that I mean the laws which we recently modified and did, the law on sustainable investments, the creation of a new agency within the Office of the Prime Minister to showcase and prove our understanding of the importance of FDI by bringing that function under the Office of the Prime Minister, and Prime Minister himself had to have this sort of close coordination with these efforts. And then basically investment in technical vocational education and training. We want to model to some extent what Switzerland and Germany has, especially when it comes to, let's say, both low to medium skilled type, like light manufacturing, but also medium to high skilled in light of the new AI movements. Basically, we want to mirror Estonia when it comes to digital infrastructure, and Ireland when it comes to FDI attractiveness and their ability to attract investments. Sort of, we don't want to copy, we want to kindly borrow good practices and do our own thing here. And I think that's in a nutshell, that should be there.
Well, we were talking about that with a founder that we just actually interviewed a little while ago, and he was saying the same thing. He said, the great part about a country being this early and this young is you can just go out, you can steal the pieces that you want to from other countries where they've done it really well, whether that's Estonia or it's Singapore, or it's like those bits that have worked extraordinarily well, and start to incorporate them into that future. Dale, if you were advising a U.S. company today and somebody said, hey, I'm thinking about investing in Kosovo, or I want to understand Kosovo more to consider an investment there, what advice would you give them? What would you tell them?
You have a winning situation here. You have a country which has all the laws in place. They function. They speak English, by and large. They have duty-free entry of their goods into the EU, so they don't have to wait for becoming a member. They're already in the EU, in effect. So to operate a business there becomes extremely easy, and you get off the ground not having to worry about a lot of protectionist policies in some of the EU countries.
Right. So it's there. I mean, the ingredients are.
And you have a dynamic population here, very smart people.
Yep.
And an IT sector which is, and frankly, I'm amazed at how big it is and how strong it is.
Yeah. So am I.
I didn't plan that.
That was not you.
I still have trouble getting my computer to work.
Is there anything, I mean, from your standpoint of somebody who's building companies here today, is there anything missing that you'd love to see?
Well, I think Luan covered very well some of the areas where there's a lot of interest from companies here. This AI, the education sector, some people argue has issues, and it's a very complex topic to address. But I feel like with this emergence of AI, that strategy in its own could be easier, very effective, and could actually build a workforce that is very useful for tech companies.
Yep.
And in terms of the government, like what I would see, I think this economic branding is crucial.
Yep.
We said it a couple of times. If you come here, you see what the ingredients are. You're finding a way to cooperate.
Yep.
And I think there is a way to do that in an international scale. We don't need to bring necessarily people here, but we can promote Kosovo, like I think this documentary does part of that, but it can be much more systemic.
Yep.
You know, so
Luan, we've talked a lot about the U.S., right? When you think about the EU, how important is it to get in? Is it, something that you view as critical, or is it something that, hey, if it happens, great. If it doesn't, that's okay too.
I mean, of course, I view it as very important with one asterisk, which I'll explain. I personally don't like over-regulation, and I think I think it can become, there's a thin line that divides business enabler from inhabiting competitiveness if you over-regulate. I hope we can, for sure, integrate as soon as possible, but maintain this agility, which we currently have and want to have in the future as well. I think with EU membership come standards. Standards are always good because they offer an ability to make a market predictable, which is also very good for the prospects of attracting investments into the country. And I think also the removal of any trade barriers which come with EU integration, having a bigger market, access to a bigger market, of course, helps. Again, we are trying to compete on some factors right now, which is a young, tech-savvy, multilingual population, but also relatively competitive labor costs. And with EU integration come other obligations, which then change that paradigm a little bit.
The cost advantage may change.
Overall, I think we need to understand what our competitive advantages are as a country, and we try to outlay some of them here. And as Blendrit said, we should try to brand ourselves with all the successes we've had to at least entice people to visit Kosovo, because I think then our job becomes much easier to help them make a decision to choose Kosovo as an investment destination. One more thing, which relates to AI and its ever-growing need for energy. Kosovo, as you know, sits in one of the largest coal reserves in the world. But of course, nowadays, coal is not a sexy subject. And, depending who you talk with now, with the new US administration, perhaps these are different times now. But if AI would enable the innovation of carbon capture technology to an extent which it would make coal use and utilization acceptable, then it changes the whole paradigm for us. Because coal for us is like oil for Saudi Arabia. And we could use coal to produce energy and as environmentally friendly manner as possible, to then become potentially the AI data center of this region at least, but why not even beyond,
To use coal to basically power to create the power structure you need to then power the AI, the AI infrastructure.
Yes.
Blendrit, what's if you had to brand Kosovo, how would you characterize that brand of Kosovo?
But ideally, I would try to brand it as a very attractive business startup environment. So if you're trying to build a decentralized organization, you're based in Silicon Valley, and you're paying a developer $300,000. You can build literally a team of 5 to 10 people, similarly skilled, maybe there, right here in Kosovo, with a culture that is super compliant, aligned with the US culture, with a lot of other benefits, from language to time zone to wage arbitrage, as I said, to just a fun place to live and work. So I would make it a very simple pitch, because it doesn't work when you go into, and of course, from a tax point of view, it's very attractive also for US companies. We are at that time again
just business friendly at almost every level.
super business friendly and super business fun oriented,
Yeah.
which a lot of the tech sector looks at.
Yeah.
Can we build a very good culture in that country, or is it a typical outsourcing point?
Yep.
We want to avoid the outsourcing trap and build an organization that is actually fully aligned with the rest of it, which is in the US.
And you and I have talked
Yeah.
about that a million times with the
Yeah.
difference with, outsourcing low-level jobs versus really truly building decentralized talent, in different parts of the world. Yeah. Luan, if you were talking to a company today, what's the one commitment that you would give them, to give them assurance that Kosovo is where you need to be?
Well, good political will at the highest possible level. I've been working with this prime minister for 5 years now. So this is very certain. In this unsecured global unrests that are happening everywhere with all sorts of autocracies and democracies in a very symbolic way, so to speak. I'm trying to be diplomatic. Good political will is here. Agility to create a very positive and fostering business enabling environment. We don't want to precondition. We realize the world is changing fast with AI, so we need to have a collaboration with prospective investors to make sure that we are building a system that suits, it's fair and transparent.
Yep.
And we don't overregulate.
Yep.
In other words. So basically, we promise collaboration, goodwill, transparent system, and the rest belongs to them. The contact, as Blendrit mentioned, the youth, professional youth, fully aligned the values and sort of easily integrated into their work cultures, foreign companies. I think that's the other part of the coin, which is necessary.
Yep. Dale, if you're back to your advisor role to a U.S. company, if they said to you, Dale, what should I look for? Right? Not necessarily that the problems are there, but if I had to do due diligence on Kosovo as a country, what are the questions I should be asking, and where should I make sure it's what we all believe it to be?
You're asking a non-businessman.
Well, that's all right, but you know where to look. You know where the.
Well, I think you have to make sure that the systems that are in place work properly.
Yep.
You don't need corruption, and there is very little corruption in Kosovo, as opposed to a neighboring country. We both know. You need to make sure that the education system is going to continue producing the quality and the skills that you need from the young people who are here.
Yep.
And that's very important. You need to also look at the obstacles, little obstacles you're not paying much attention to.
Yep.
I would say that quickly, this city is becoming impossible to drive in.
Right.
So you can't start a business in a city that you can't drive in. It takes you an hour to drive from one side to the other. So somebody's got to get the traffic system under control.
Yep.
So there's little things like that. I mean, you need to sit down and just throw ideas out. What's the problem? What's this problem? And then see who can get it solved quickly.
The good part with traffic problems is that means people keep coming. Blendrit, what's the what's if somebody said, hey, this is my first time actually doing business with a company in Kosovo, what's it like? What's the commitment that you would make to a company not here when you are selling your services to those companies if they're concerned about?
I think a big benefit of working in Kosovo, I've been in the market for 7-8 years. Some could look at it as a disadvantage, but we have had zero interference from any party. Yeah. So we could have done literally what we wanted. Zero interference from government, from any public or private entity. So we have really had a very good experience here. We hear stories of people outsourcing in other countries nearby where that was not the case. And that actually, I talked about the economic brand. I feel like the political brand is also very strong. Even though people talk about instability, from an entrepreneur's point of view, it's as stable as you need it to be.
Right.
So things move fast. There are errors here and there. Like it takes a bit longer sometimes to do something, but it's much better in many other aspects. So I would say you have a very safe place where you can do business.
Yep.
From what you're interested in. So hire people, register your business, create, the infrastructure.
Yep. I'm going to ask you guys all, you can sort of answer in whatever order you're on, for just the same question I've wrapped up, I think, every interview with. I come back here in 5 years. And, we're sitting here today and we're looking at what Kosovo has become. What is it? What has it become in the next 5 years? What's the vision for it?
Well, given my background, I would like to see Kosovo become a more vibrant democracy. Political parties don't talk to each other. Political actors don't talk to each other. And I grew up in a family where my father was a politician. And when he died, an opposition political person wrote him an obituary, which is one of the proudest pieces of paper I have. She said, my father's name was Dale also. She said, Dale and I would always sit down and we would work out a problem together. We were never angry. We looked for the common solution that was best for everybody. Here, the political party people don't sit down and have lunch together. All they do is throw stones. That's got to stop. They've got to open up and talk to each other, look at the long-term interests of the country, and make them the things you're working together on, and not short-term gains against your opponents.
Yep. If you think about, let's assume that, political issues and things like that, what can it be, in that period of time? What could it become over the next 5 years?
We hope it could become more cooperative, looking towards common solutions to the problems, and also everyone agreeing on the long-term strategy. Where are we taking Kosovo? What do the people want? That's something else we need to find out. In a regular way, voting doesn't do it, quite frankly, here.
Right.
Voting right now is still sort of the old style where votes are bought or people's loyalties or family loyalties. We need a more open system where people understand the issues and are engaged in the debates on those issues. And the politicians need to educate them and persuade them that we're the better party to do it, or we two parties can work together and do it better.
Yep. I know some other countries that could probably benefit from that advice.
Yeah, I have one in mind. Actually.
I'm sure you do. So do I. What do you guys think? What does this look like in 5 years from now? What's Kosovo become?
We're right now in municipal elections, so I think by then we should have the traffic issue. At least
It's amazing. It's amazing how the thumbs get solved, right?
And other than that, I feel like with the right steps, Kosovo could become really one of the largest exporters of talent and startups for the US market. So talent based on the companies that we're able to bring here through good economic and political branding. And startups, actually, we're seeing already movement.
Yep.
In 5 years, I'm assuming a lot of the companies that we have here will become international, like some of them listed, some of them purchased. And hopefully then with this type of energy, a lot more funding from the government and private sector in AI, in energy stability, and all these ingredients that you need to actually start building that startup ecosystem.
Yep. Yeah, it's amazing when you it only takes, in a country this size, it only takes one or two, right, to have that kind of success. We've talked about this with a lot of founders where, they've built these businesses and they've got that potential to get acquired or continue to build here or bring in a large scale. I know we talked to Code Labs, who brought in a big Series B here from a North American private equity. We've talked to a couple that have aspirations to go public, and when they do, that ecosystem just explodes, right? Because that's within those companies or the next layer. That's the next set of founders, right, who now have the experience and the capital to go do it again. What do you? What does this look like? Do you think?
Well, I mean, It's multidimensional, as Blendrit said earlier. As a government, we are in charge of policy to laws down to, again, having this as less of bureaucracy as possible, as less administrative procedures, as less regulation without risking quality and other activities which we don't want Kosovo to be known for in the future. So
Right.
we want Kosovo to be known for being fully transparent, but with credible investments and as high of a value jobs as possible.
Right.
We recognize we are not in the position to only have AI cybersecurity people hired now. Therefore, I mentioned earlier the need for even light manufacturing in the time being. So basically, what I hope to have in the next mandate, so to speak, it's a 4-year mandate, but first of all, political stability, which is very important. There are countries that have had multiple elections in one mandate. We had a full mandate. We have managed to have a good sort of fiscal and macro budgetary situation where we have one of the lowest country debts in the region. And this talks about our ability to enter into longer credit arrangements for funding these large infrastructural projects, which are needed. Any type of business, private sector development will want good energy supply, good roads, and everything else in terms of good environment, in terms of these public infrastructural projects we have. So at least put them in a channel and have the clear milestones toward either securing funding and in some cases perhaps even starting those projects. Then focusing on improving the conditions through a public-private dialogue, which we already do quite well, to see how we can develop these 3 groups of, so to speak, perhaps 4 groups of sectors. One is IT-enabled services, develop the best possible policy and strategy and operational plan, which then is given to the whole government to implement to make the best possible business enabling environment to build the entrepreneurship startup ecosystem around IT-enabled services, which is our biggest aspiration, highest paying jobs that will actually keep our youth here in Kosovo and not having to leave Kosovo. Versus, let's say, a programming versus a call center job.
Right.
We are not choosing right now because we're not in a situation, but we would like to move towards more of a higher value jobs. Second group is agriculture and food processing, relates to food security and for import substitution, but also for export. There's an ever-growing need in Western Europe for more and more food imports. And third would be this light manufacturing from high-value electronics to I mentioned earlier, furniture and other products. I would like us to be more aggressive in, again, improving the business enabling environment. And for that, you improve it by, let's say, creating the infrastructure for eco-industrial parks. Where companies that produce export their goods and pay less for carbon tax when they export to kitchens to Switzerland, let's say. We have energy issue, of course, move into renewables as much as possible, but if we could crack the coal code, then that will be the 80-20 Pareto analysis.
When you when you start to build a brand of Kosovo, you may want to work on the brand of coal too at the same time, right?
I know that's a more of an uphill battle.
You got a much easier branding for Kosovo.
In terms of branding, again, words that come to mind: emerging, promising, underestimated. These are all interesting words for a young entrepreneur who likes to take a bit of a risk. When it comes to risk, if we can work with the U.S. government, and now working for, I always measure things from 1 to 10. So working for me means agreeing on what to do, what each side does, and then doing it, and then seeing the impact at the end after it's done. If U.S. government and other entities, even the U.S. prospective investors like yourself, can help us de-risk this initial capital, seed capital that may be needed for startup businesses. So with them, we can build the ecosystem. We have all the ingredients. It's just that coming to the initial tranche of money may be more difficult because of how they perceive Kosovo from the outside, which relates to the final point I will make, is how we sort of combine all of these into one brand, one packaging, to really inform people rightfully where Kosovo is right now and the promise it holds. And this, I think your documentary will, of course, put some dent into it.
Good.
And help. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. This has been a great week here, and we appreciate everything we've sort of encountered over the week. It's been really extraordinary to see. It's, in a lot of ways, Kosovo is the ultimate startup, right? I love the 3 word you said.
I like it.
Emerging, underestimated, and what was the third?
Promising.
And promising, right? And that's what every startup is, right? And that's here you have a country as a startup. You just don't see that much.
We are a startup country when you think about it.